Most men who lose attraction weren't rude, cold, or toxic. They were kind, considerate, nice. And that's exactly the problem. Because niceness feels right. It feels moral. It feels safe. But attraction doesn't grow in safety. It grows in polarity. Being nice often isn't about care. It's about avoiding discomfort, avoiding rejection, avoiding the risk of standing in your own truth. And the irony is brutal. The more you try to be good, the more attraction quietly disappears. In this video, you'll understand why being nice feels so natural, why it's rewarded socially, and why, psychologically, it slowly kills desire. And more importantly, what replaces niceness without turning you into someone you're not. Niceness doesn't feel natural by accident. For most men, it was learned early. As children, we discovered something important. Approval brought safety. Disapproval brought tension, distance, or withdrawal. So we adapted. We learned to be agreeable, to be helpful, to read the room, to avoid becoming a problem. And over time, this behavior didn't just become a strategy, it became an identity. Being nice feels right because it reduces risk. It lowers the chance of conflict. It keeps doors open. It allows us to believe we're doing the right thing. But psychologically, niceness often has nothing to do with generosity. It's about regulation. When you're nice, you regulate other people's emotions, so you don't have to sit with your own discomfort. You soften your words. You suppress your needs. You anticipate reactions before they happen. And each time you do this, your nervous system is rewarded with relief. No tension, no rejection, no danger. This is why niceness is so hard to let go of. It doesn't feel weak. It feels intelligent. It feels controlled. It feels mature. But attraction doesn't respond to emotional control. It responds to emotional presence. And presence requires something niceness avoids at all costs: risk. Risk of disapproval, risk of loss, risk of standing fully in your own experience. That's where the problem begins. Attraction doesn't operate on values. It doesn't reward kindness. It doesn't punish honesty. And it doesn't care how fair or considerate you are. Attraction is pre-rational. It forms before words are chosen, before intentions are explained, before morality enters the room. This is why so many men feel confused. They did everything right. They listened. They supported. They never crossed a line. And still, something faded. Because what attraction responds to is not goodness, but direction. When you're nice, your attention moves outward. You track reactions. You adjust tone. You calibrate behavior to avoid friction. And unintentionally, you send a message: I'm monitoring you. Not consciously, not manipulatively, but energetically. And monitoring kills polarity. Attraction requires a sense of separation. Two people standing in their own emotional gravity. But niceness collapses that space. It blends, it smooths, it removes edges. And without edges, desire has nothing to press against. This is why attraction often fades quietly, not explosively. No arguments, no betrayal, just a gradual loss of charge. Because you can be good, reliable, and emotionally safe, and still be invisible. Attraction doesn't ask, is he nice? It asks, is he self-directed? And niceness, when driven by approval, answers that question with silence. Most niceness isn't free. It comes with a contract, even if no one ever says it out loud. The contract sounds like this: I'll be easy. I'll be agreeable. I won't create problems, and in return, I'll be valued. Not demanded, not negotiated, just hoped for. This is where niceness becomes dangerous. Because once there's a hidden expectation, authenticity disappears. You start giving, not because you want to, but because you're waiting to be chosen, waiting to be appreciated, waiting for reassurance that you matter. And when that reassurance doesn't come, something subtle happens. Resentment, not explosive, not dramatic, quiet. You pull back emotionally. Your warmth cools, your energy shifts, and the other person feels it without knowing why. This is why niceness often turns into passive distance, because desire cannot exist under obligation. The moment someone feels they owe you attraction, they stop feeling it. Psychologically, this dynamic is rooted in power, not dominance, but self-possession. When you're nice to secure worth, you hand that power away. You let someone else decide whether you're allowed to feel solid, confident, enough. And attraction never grows towards someone who is waiting to be validated. It grows towards someone who already stands on their own ground. Niceness hides this truth well, but eventually the contract breaks. And when it does, attraction leaves with it. Confidence feels dangerous to most men, not because it's aggressive, but because it's exposed. When you're confident, you risk being misunderstood. You risk disappointing someone. You risk not being chosen. Niceness avoids all of that. Niceness says, I'll adjust, I'll soften, I'll stay agreeable. Confidence says something else. This is where I stand. And that difference is everything. Attraction responds to what feels self-directed, not controlling, not dominant, but internally anchored. A confident man doesn't need to impress. He doesn't need to persuade. He doesn't need to manage reactions. He allows tension to exist without rushing to resolve it. And that tolerance changes the emotional dynamic, because tension creates polarity, and polarity creates desire. This is why confidence often feels uncomfortable at first. Your nervous system reads it as risk, as potential loss, as uncertainty. But psychologically, it communicates something powerful. Self-trust, not, I know I'll be liked, but I'll be okay even if I'm not. Niceness tries to secure the outcome. Confidence accepts it, and attraction follows acceptance far more reliably than it follows effort. This is why confidence doesn't feel nice. It feels calm, centered, non-negotiating. And that's precisely why it's attractive. The shift away from niceness is not about becoming harder. It's about becoming clearer. Most men think they need to add something: confidence, charisma, dominance. In reality, they need to remove something: self-betrayal. Being grounded means your words match your internal state. You don't say yes while feeling no. You don't agree while quietly resisting. You don't give while expecting a return. This shows up most clearly in dating. A nice man agrees to plans he doesn't want because he doesn't want to seem difficult. A grounded man says, "That doesn't really work for me," without explaining himself away. A nice man texts constantly to maintain connection. A grounded man texts when he has something to say and lets silence exist without anxiety. A nice man listens to something he disagrees with, nods, and stores the frustration for later. A grounded man says, "I see it differently," and stays present even if tension appears. Notice the difference. The grounded man isn't colder, He isn't harsher. He's simply not negotiating. Instead of asking, "Will this be liked?" he asks, "Is this true for me?" And that shift changes the emotional field, because when you stop adjusting to be chosen, your presence becomes stable. One simple internal check makes this obvious. Am I saying this to be honest or to be approved? If the answer is approval, niceness is driving. If the answer is honesty, groundedness is. And paradoxically, the moment you stop trying to be attractive, you become attractive. Because attraction follows congruence, not effort. And congruence can't be faked. Healthy attraction isn't loud. It doesn't come from performance or constant reassurance or trying to be impressive. It comes from emotional steadiness, from someone who can stay present without needing to control the outcome. This is what attraction responds to. A man who doesn't rush to fix tension, who doesn't collapse when things feel uncertain, who doesn't need constant signals to feel grounded. Not because he's detached, but because he's internally anchored. Healthy attraction notices boundaries, not rigid walls, but clear edges, knowing where you end and the other person begins. This is why self-direction matters. When you know what you want, what you don't want, and you're willing to lose connection rather than abandon yourself, something shifts. You stop chasing chemistry, and chemistry starts finding you, because attraction follows self-alignment. It responds to someone who feels whole on their own. Not perfect, not dominant, not emotionally closed, just solid. And this is the final irony. The moment you stop trying to earn desire, you become someone desire can relax around, because there's nothing hidden, nothing negotiated, nothing owed, just presence. Being nice isn't wrong, but when niceness becomes a strategy, to avoid discomfort, to secure approval, to protect yourself from loss, it stops being kindness and becomes self-erasure. Attraction doesn't disappear because you weren't good enough. It disappears because you weren't fully there. Presence doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't chase. It simply stands. So notice where you're still being nice, instead of being true, where you soften yourself to stay connected. Because the moment you stop managing attraction, you stop losing it. And if this helped you see yourself more clearly, you already know what to do.